My wife cheated on me with a terrible coworker who has made my job miserable. It turns out he's married as well, so his wife and I teamed up to financially ruin both of them. I am a guy, 35 years old. I never imagined I'd be in this situation, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. This is the story of how my world crumbled, and how I found an unexpected ally in my quest for justice. It all started about a year ago when a new guy joined my department at work. From day one, something about him rubbed me the wrong way. He was arrogant, manipulative, and had a knack for taking credit for other people's work. Despite my best efforts to remain professional, we clashed constantly. As the months went by, my work life became increasingly miserable. This guy seemed to have it out for me, always finding ways to undermine my efforts and make me look bad in front of our superiors. I tried talking to HR, but without concrete evidence, there wasn't much they could do. Meanwhile, things at home were great. My wife of 7 years was supportive and understanding about my work troubles. She'd listen to me vent about my toxic coworker and always had words of encouragement, or so I thought. One Friday evening, I came home early, hoping to surprise my wife with dinner plans. As I walked in, I heard muffled voices coming from our bedroom. My heart sank as I recognized the second voice. It was him, my nightmare of a coworker. I stood frozen in the hallway, unable to process what I was hearing. Part of me wanted to burst in and confront them, but shock kept me rooted to the spot. After what felt like an eternity, I quietly left the house and drove to a nearby park, my mind reeling. Hours passed as I sat there, trying to make sense of it all. How long had this been going on? How could she do this to me? And with him, of all people. The pain and betrayal were overwhelming. When I finally returned home, my wife was alone, acting as if nothing had happened. I couldn't bring myself to confront her that night. I needed time to think, to plan my next move. The following week at work was hell. Seeing him every day, knowing what he'd done, took every ounce of self-control I had. I threw myself into my work, avoiding both of them as much as possible, while I figured out what to do. After 2 weeks of silent agony, I decided to confront my wife. I laid out what I'd seen and heard, hoping against hope that there was some explanation, some misunderstanding. But her reaction confirmed my worst fears. She broke down, admitting to a 6-month affair. She claimed it had started innocently, just venting about work stress, but had quickly spiraled into something more. She begged for forgiveness, swearing it was over, and that she'd made a terrible mistake. I was devastated. Not only had she betrayed me, but she'd been comforting me about work problems caused by the very man she was sleeping with. The hypocrisy was staggering. In that moment, I knew our marriage was over. I told her to leave, that I needed time to process everything. As she packed a bag to stay with her sister, I was already planning my next move. The following day, I did some digging. It turned out my coworker was married to a woman who worked at a law firm across town. My mind raced with possibilities. Did she know? Was she going through the same hell I was? After much internal debate, I decided to reach out to her. I found her work email and sent a carefully worded message, asking to meet about an urgent personal matter concerning her husband. We met at a quiet cafe the next evening. As I explained the situation, I watched her face cycle through shock, disbelief, and finally, a cold anger that matched my own. She hadn't known about the affair, but she'd suspected something was off for months. As we talked, a plan began to form. We were both hurt, angry, and out for justice. But more than that, we both wanted to ensure that our cheating spouses faced real consequences for their actions. Over the next few weeks, we met regularly, plotting our revenge. We gathered evidence, emails, text messages, credit card statements showing hotel bookings and expensive gifts. We documented every instance of my coworkers' workplace bullying and manipulation. Then, we struck. First, we confronted them together. The look on their faces when they realized we knew everything and had teamed up was almost worth all the pain they'd caused. Almost. Next, we went to our respective divorce lawyers with our evidence. My wife and I had a prenup, which she'd clearly violated. His wife, being a lawyer herself, had an even more ironclad agreement. We made it clear that we'd be seeking maximum penalties for their infidelity. But we didn't stop there. We took our evidence of my coworkers' workplace misconduct to the company's senior management and HR department. We presented a clear pattern of bullying, manipulation, and misuse of company resources to conduct his affair. The fallout was swift and severe. My soon-to-be ex-wife found herself facing a divorce where she'd walk away with virtually nothing. My coworker was fired for gross misconduct, his reputation in our industry in tatters. His wife filed for divorce, leveraging her legal expertise to ensure he'd be paying alimony for years to come. As for me, with my toxic coworker gone, my work life improved dramatically. I even received a promotion for my dedication during difficult times. In the months that followed, I watched as both my ex and my former coworker struggled financially and professionally. They'd lost their jobs, their marriages, and their reputations. It was a harsh punishment, but in our minds, a fitting one for the pain they'd caused. Some might say we went too far, that our revenge was too severe. But sitting across from his ex-wife, sharing a drink and a grim smile of satisfaction, I felt no remorse. We'd taken control of a terrible situation and turned it to our advantage. It hasn't all been smooth sailing, of course. The emotional toll of the betrayal and the stress of executing our plan has been immense. There are still nights when I lie awake, replaying everything in my mind, wondering if I could have done something differently. But then I remember the look on my ex-wife's face when she realized the consequences of her actions, and I know I made the right choice. I refuse to be a victim in my own story. As for my unexpected ally, my coworker's ex-wife, we've developed a strange sort of friendship. We meet occasionally, bonding over our shared experience and the satisfaction of our successful revenge. There's no romantic connection, we're both too scarred for that right now. But there's a deep understanding and respect between us. Looking back, I never thought I'd be capable of such calculated vengeance. But betrayal has a way of changing a person. I'm not proud of every decision I made, but I won't apologize for standing up for myself and ensuring that those who hurt me faced real consequences. To anyone out there facing a similar situation, I say this: don't let yourself be a doormat. You don't have to sink to their level, but you also don't have to take the high road at the expense of your own well-being. There's a middle ground, a way to seek justice without losing yourself in the process. As for me, I'm focusing on rebuilding my life. I've sold our house and moved to a new apartment. I'm excelling at work, free from the toxic environment my ex-coworker created. I've started therapy to process everything that's happened and to work on trusting again. It's not an easy journey, but I'm getting there, one day at a time. And every time I feel a twinge of guilt about how things played out, I remind myself of the months of misery I endured, the betrayal I suffered, and I know I did what I had to do. Life is too short to let others take advantage of you. Sometimes you have to be your own hero, even if it means making tough choices. I chose to fight back, and while the path hasn't been easy, I don't regret it for a second. As I write this, I'm sitting in my new apartment, looking out at the city lights. I'm not the same person I was a year ago. I'm stronger, wiser, and far less naive. But I'm also more cautious, more guarded. Only time will tell if that's a good thing or not. For now, I'm taking life one day at a time, focusing on my career and my personal growth. And if there's one thing I've learned from this whole ordeal, it's this: sometimes the best revenge isn't just living well. It's making sure those who wronged you don't.